Aliens exist and President Trump knows about it. That's according to Israel's former space security chief. In an interview with an Israeli news, he said the aliens have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are. NBC News chief global correspondent Bill Neely explains this one.
Hi, Alison. Well, this is quite a story, and it comes from the man who headed Israel's space security program for nearly 30 years. Chaim Eshed is making the extraordinary claim that the United States and Israel have been in contact with a group of aliens for years, not immigrants, but extraterrestrials. He has called them the Galactic Federation of Aliens, and he says President Trump is aware of the existence of these aliens and had been on the verge of revealing their secrets, he claims, but was asked not to do so by the Federation in order to prevent what he calls mass hysteria. Well, the retired general says the US and Israel have kept it from the public because, quotes, humanity isn't ready and the aliens don't want to reveal themselves until humanity can evolve, he says, and understand what space really is. Well, the good news is that he claims an agreement has been reached between the US government and the aliens, a contract to do experiments here. There's also, he says, a secret underground base on Mars where there are American and alien representatives. Now, this former head of a branch of Israel's defense ministry is 87. He was very well respected, at least until now. And he said all this in an interview with an Israeli newspaper in Hebrew, but it's really taken off after parts of it were published in English by the Jerusalem Post today. He says he's come forward now in the hope that his news will be accepted as true. He notes that if he'd made these claims 5 years ago, he would have been hospitalized, but now he says, I've got nothing to lose. Well, so far, President Trump has not tweeted about this, though remember a year ago, he did set up the Space Force as the fifth branch of the US Armed Forces. Well, we did ask the White House, the Department of Defense, and Israeli officials to comment. So far, they have not responded to the NBC News request, and I wonder if they ever will. Alison.
Greetings, one and all, and welcome to the Mind's Eye Podcast. I'm Paul James Caden, and today on the show, we're going to be talking about the possibility of extraterrestrial life forms existing out there in the universe, and maybe even being here, having a presence on Earth. I'm sure all of us are familiar with many of the stories that have circulated over the years of people spotting UFOs, being abducted. Publications like Fate magazine have been very popular in their reporting of different sightings of UFOs, aliens, and cryptids of all sizes, shapes, and origins. Up until about the last year or two, the government has said, well, there's nothing out there. There's no proof to show that there's UFOs flying around in our skies or life on other planets. But then I think it was about 2 years ago, we suddenly get this footage that comes out on the news that was released by the Pentagon of two fighter pilots filming this tic-tac shaped object racing across the sky. And, these fighter pilots say that, this was not our technology. It was going much too fast. It was doing maneuvers that our equipment, our machines, our airplanes don't have the capability to do. And then we hear that, of course, the government has known about these things in the skies for years now. And they've been watching them, tracking them, trying to figure out what they are. Are they from Earth? Are they from another planet? Are they friendly? Are they hostile? What are they here for? And now we have this particular report that has just come out from this former space security chief of Israel saying that the aliens are here. We've had contact with them for a long time, and they're just waiting for, humanity to be ready to unveil themselves. So, what is the truth here? Is this something that this gentleman is just saying because the world is in such an upheaval right now that maybe he's telling tall tales, hoping that coming from a reputable source or seeming reputable source, people might sit up and take notice and say, hey, maybe we better all come together. Maybe we should work on world peace. The aliens want to reveal themselves, but we're not ready. We're living too much like primitive tribesmen here on planet Earth, at least in their eyes. So are these tall tales? Does he have an agenda, or is he telling the truth? How do we know, between all of the stories that have been told over the years and books and magazines and television interviews, government statements, people like this gentleman coming out and saying that we have a contract with the aliens to do experiments here and President Trump knows about them. How do we know if there's any validity to any of this? I mean, these are just stories and words from other people. How do we know they're true? How do we know there's anything out there at all? Have any of us ever seen a UFO or something in the skies that we couldn't explain? Well, I think first and foremost, to try to answer that question as best that I can in this podcast, I would take a look at the spiritual documentation. Now, we have in the Bible many accounts of people seeing things in the sky that were, the chariots of God or angels that ride like the lightning. We have Isaiah with the wheels within wheels. The Bible also tells us that there is life in the universe. There are angels, the angels of God, and that there's also evil spirits or fallen angels, that there are powers in the heavens and in the air, spiritual, forces of wickedness and darkness, and that we have to be careful that we don't entertain or fall for the false teachings of these beings. For those who read the Urantia book, this is certainly a publication that puts forth that the entire universe is teeming with life. There are angels, there are other spiritual and celestial beings. There's life on other planets, some very intelligent, some just beginning. And the whole universe is growing into and toward God. That there's this whole divine infinite plan for the cosmos, the universe as we know it, and beyond, to come into a place of I think I'm saying this wrong, of peace and light, of love and light, of universal rule under God. And that we will all have a part to play in this universal plan. So the Urantia book, certainly paints the picture that there's all kinds of life out there. In metaphysics, it's also believed that there is the world we live in. There is the invisible world of spirit, of angels, and of course, other life forms throughout the universe and even in other dimensions. Because God is a creative force, He is a creative being, and He continues to create and express Himself through all these different life forms and plants and animals and planets and universes and dimensions. So again, in metaphysics, And even in Christian metaphysics, it is believed that there's all kinds of expressions and creations of God out there in the universe. But what about personal encounters? How many of you listening to this show have seen a UFO or an alien, another life form that you couldn't explain? Some of you probably have, and many of you probably have not. So I think in this show, what I wanted to do is put forth the question, are we alone in the universe? Does extraterrestrial life forms exist? Are there aliens out there? Put forth some of the spiritual ideas about what the Bible has to say about it, what the Urantia book says about it, what metaphysics has to say about it. But then I also wanted to tell a couple of stories of my personal eyewitness accounts. So if someone were to ask me, is there life out there in the universe? Do aliens exist? I would answer wholeheartedly yes. I believe that they do. And I would answer that question because of things that I have personally witnessed in my life that I couldn't explain. One of which was I believe this was around the summer of 1988. Me and a group of friends were hanging out together. And where I used to live, there was this old abandoned silkscreen factory that was like out in the middle of nowhere. It was nothing but woods and a few houses around it. And I knew about this factory because I worked there at one time. It was actually the first job I ever had. Great people, by the way. Chris Originals in Westtown, New York. It was an awesome experience. The people I worked with there were like a second family. It was like a home away from home. It was, after a while, it wasn't even like a job. But sadly, the old silkscreen factory folded, and the building stood abandoned for a number of years. And my friends and I used to go there, and we would drink beer or listen to music. We were the kind of people that just wanted to go out in the woods or be by ourselves and do our thing. We weren't bar hoppers or really wanting to go to clubs. So one day, and this was in the middle of the day, it was me, my brother, and 3 other friends of ours. We all decided to go to the old silkscreen factory and hang out. Some of us drank beer, others weren't drinkers at all. They brought soda, and snacks and all this type of thing. So we drive up to the old factory. It's broad daylight, the sun is out. And, we get out of the car, and one friend of mine proceeds to sit on the hood of my car and lean back against the windshield. And he's looking up into the sky, and he points directly above the car, and he says, guys, what the hell is that? And we looked up, and right over the car in the sky, the clear blue day sky, was this object that looked like 2 setting suns. Now, have you ever seen the sun when it was setting? And it's that bright red orange color, and you can look directly at it. Well, this is the color of this object, and it was joined, 2 circles joined by a bar, and it was all glowing with like the color of a setting sun. And it was pretty big in the sky. This wasn't some faint outline of an object. I mean, this thing was pretty close. And we all sat there looking at it, and it just seemed that it didn't move, it didn't take off, it didn't shoot off up into the sky. it just seemed that the sky closed in around it like a cloaking device. Like the sky just closed around this thing and it was gone. And of course we sat there, speculating, is it still there? Is it hiding itself, but it's observing us? And we thought about leaving, getting out of there, but we thus decided it was safe. We weren't abducted yet, so we were just gonna go on with our our festivities. But that was one of the things that was really weird, and there were a number of us that saw it, and nobody could explain what it was, where it came from, where it went. How did the sky just close up around it? Have no idea. The second strangest thing I saw, and this is when I lived in a place called Middletown, New York. I was going to Taco Bell at night with a friend, and this was probably somewhere later February. It was still getting dark kind of early. It was cold, and we went to Taco Bell. And the Taco Bell we went to was off the main drag in town, and there was this big parking lot in the back of the Taco Bell. And there was like this little strip mall that, there were supposed to be businesses that went in there, but this little strip mall just never got off the ground. Seemed like nobody ever wanted to go there and open their business except for a little daycare center. And at the end of the parking lot was just woods, just trees. And so we get our order at Taco Bell. We go to the drive-thru, and we come around and we go to leave and pull out. Where to the left you went back up to the road to go home. To the right was just the big empty parking lot with the the strip mall and then the woods in the back. And just over the strip mall going toward the woods was your classic saucer-shaped craft with lights that were going around the rim, and they were like circling around the rim of this object. And my friend and I both saw it very clearly. It was pretty low in the sky. I mean, it was, as it went off into the distance, it was just above the treetops. But this object wasn't overly big. I would say it was maybe the size of a small aircraft. It didn't leave a trail. It didn't make any sound. There was no sound of an engine or propellers. It just glided silently, because I saw it first. I was in the passenger side. And I happened to say, look at that over there. What is that, going over the strip mall? Is that what I think it is? So we turned the car and faced it toward the strip mall, toward the woods, where we could see it clearly through the windshield. And it just glided silently, over the treetops in the distance, and kept going until it was out of sight. The next thing I saw, and this was the third when it comes to seeing unidentified craft that I had no idea, what they were. And this one was a little scary. This one gave me a moment of chills and wondering, what the hell is that, and what the hell is going to happen? It was pretty damn creepy. And this happened probably about 2000. Oh, and a matter of fact, the craft over the Taco Bell, that was probably the late 90s. I want to say 1998, 1999, somewhere in that particular vicinity. This one that was creepy. This one took place just about 2015, 2016. My wife and I lived in Ulster County, New York, in this house on a road called Bone Hollow Road. And it was just woods all over. You had to drive for about 10, 12 minutes, to get to civilization. But it was isolated up there. I mean, there were houses, but there was a lot of woods around, everywhere. Very quiet. Definitely a place to live if you enjoyed nature, animals and crickets. It was very quiet, very private. So one morning we get up, to, go to work and get ready for the day. And my stepdaughter, who is disabled, we realized she didn't have any juice. My wife forgot to get it at the grocery store. So, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30. I'd just gotten out of the shower. So I said, "Oh, no problem. I'll just jump in the car before you leave for work. I'll run down. I'll grab some juice at the convenience store at the bottom of the hill and bring it back." And it's still dark. I mean, again, this was winter time. This was probably I want to say February, March, but it was pitch black outside. So I get in the car and I'm driving, and I'm going down this one strip of road where there's just woods on one side, a big embankment on the other side that's, again, woods going over like this steep embankment. And I'm driving. There's no houses on this road. There's a couple abandoned houses. And suddenly in the dark, as I'm driving, I see dead ahead of me, over the road, your classic triangular shaped craft with three lights, one at the point of the triangle and one on each point toward the back. And this thing is it's big. And it's just over the road, stationary, hovering there. And it was surreal. Here I am, it's dark. I'm on a wooded road, there's nobody around, there's no houses. And bam, I come face to face with this thing. And, I just hit the brake. I stopped dead in the middle of the road. It's just me and this craft. And I'm looking at it, and, I had chills and a little bit of scare moment. I was like, damn, I hope, as fascinated as I am with ufology and UFOs and all of this kind of thing, I hope this isn't the moment that a beam of light doesn't come out of that thing, and then I have my own abduction story. It was just that kind of moment, like something you would see in a documentary or a movie where there's this big craft over the road, and all of a sudden, boom, the big blinding beam of light, and then suddenly it's 6 hours later. So it was creepy. It was creepy. This thing is like right there in front of me, and I'm looking at it. I had nowhere to turn around. It was just woods on one side and the big embankment with a drop off on the other. Nowhere to go. The only way to go was to reverse, but it was dark, couldn't really see where you're going, straight ahead, or sit there and wait and see what happens. And luckily for me, a beam of blue-white light did not come out of this thing and suck me up into an abduction scenario. It just hovered there. And then it very, very slowly just started turning toward the right, pointing itself toward the woods, and then started moving in that direction out over the trees. And I sat there and I watched this thing go. And when it was a safe enough distance, I proceeded on my journey to get the juice. And I saw this thing, as I was driving. It was like going in the same direction as the car. I could see the lights until it finally, veered off and disappeared over the horizon. But that one was scary. That's definitely a little bit of a sinking feeling when you're just going about your day, and suddenly, bam, you run into this thing in the middle of nowhere, and you have no clue what's going to happen next. So those are, several of my noteworthy UFO encounters that I couldn't explain. I know what I saw. And, we could speculate and say, well, maybe, these craft that I saw were ours. Maybe there weren't aliens in them at all. Maybe they were people, military or government or, whatever the case may be. And sure, that's certainly an argument. I do have other tales I could tell, but this is not the time nor place for some of those because they have a more of a spiritual nature. But I think the thing that really deserves honorable mention, and I think that the video is still on my YouTube channel. I did a video called The Being of Light. And to say, ask the question, is there life out there in the universe? Is there life in other dimensions? I say absolutely yes, because, this one really kind of took the cake for me. And some of you who have listened to my show for a while may remember this story. Others, this may be the first time you're hearing it. But this was around February. It always seems it's like February, March. This was mid-February 2003. And this time it was me and a friend of mine. We were going to Best Buy, which is a store that sells electronics, and I was getting a computer or a microphone for my computer, and I don't remember what my friend was going for, but we're driving down the road in Middletown, New York, this place road called Gulf Links Road. Again, it's just woods, open fields where there used to be, farmland. A couple, back then there were, some sporadic houses and a couple of little apartment complexes and a golf course, which was why it was called Gulf Links Road. And, we're driving, going to Best Buy, and this was a shortcut, taking the back roads rather than the main roads. And as we're driving, again, I'm in the passenger seat. We're using my friend's car. I happen to look off to the left toward this group of trees, and I see this light moving back and forth over the trees. And at first glance, it looked like somebody with a flashlight, one of those big, high-powered flashlights. Maybe it was somebody walking a dog or, whatever. I mean, it was cold. There was snow on the ground, but somebody could have been out there. So, I see this light going back and forth over the trees, and as we get closer, I see it again, and it looks like a circle of light. As we get by the patch of trees, which is on the left-hand side of the road, this circle of light comes off of the trees and passes over the hood of our car as we're driving, lights up the whole interior of the car with a blue-white light. I mean, I could see my friend's face. She's sitting there, with this look of shock and going, gasping and going, what the F is that? And the thing of it is this wasn't just a circle of light. It was a circle of light on the trees, but by the time it came off the trees and passed over the hood of our car, and as crazy as this sounds, and I'm not pulling anybody's leg on this one, it was the shape of a person, a man, with very large triangular wings coming off or out of its back. It didn't have a face. It didn't have any features. It was just pure blue-white light, and it was bright enough that it just lit up the car when it went right over the hood of our car. And when it hit the other side of the road, which was just an open field where there was once a farm, I suppose they planted corn or something there, but it was just a big empty field now. It hit the edge of the road by the field, and it looked like it just disappeared. It just went into a doorway that we couldn't see. Head first, feet last. Pop, the light went out. It was gone. We both saw it clear as day. And of course, some people, that I've told this story to say, it was a bird, you were confused, that absolutely, I never seen a bird light up the whole interior of a car on a dark, moonless night, where you really can't see your hand in front of your face. I was studying at that time to be certified as a hypnotherapist. So I was well aware of, mass hysteria and influencing others. So when my friend gasped and she was like, "What the F is that?" I told her, I said, don't say anything. Don't speak a word right now. Just think about what you saw. And then I thought about what I saw, and I got the story straight in my head. Okay, here's what I saw. It looked like a person. Big triangular wings. It was, looked like it was composed of light. It disappeared like it went into a doorway that we couldn't see. And then I asked my friend, I said, "Okay, what did you see?" And she said the same exact thing. So there was no way we could influence one another or have mass hysteria or one of us being the dominant personality that leads the other one into some kind of story. I was aware of all that. So I tried to avoid that by saying, don't say anything, don't say a word, until I got the facts straight in my head. But it was clear as day. I mean, it literally went right over the hood of our car. I mean, this thing, if it was 2 feet in front of the windshield as it went by, there was no way that you could mistake what this thing was. So again, that kind of solidified it for me, at least one of the things in my life, that there's life out there that we're unaware of, we don't know about, we don't see it every day. Where does it come from? Why is it here? Why was it around the trees? Was it studying them? Was it trying to help them? Was it, taking a sample back to its world? I mean, what was happening? We'll never know. But if nothing else, that's one of the things that I've seen in my life that made me say, yeah, there's life out there that we would consider to be aliens, things that are not human, things that are not of this earth. Was it what the Urantia book calls a midwayer? Was it an angel? Was it something else? Shoot me an email. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think it was. But these are some of my personal stories that kind of set in my mind the opinion that there's definitely things out there that are not from this world. And so I hope you enjoyed the stories. Maybe you have some of your own. Feel free to share them. I'm always happy to hear other people's sightings and encounters of things like UFOs or strange creatures or beings. I've always said I think there's a lot of us that have a story to tell, and we have the most interesting stories, but we'll never have a big platform on which to tell them. And I think that's a shame. Because it always seems that people that get the big platform, the big news story, the book deals, the movie deals, people paying a lot of attention to their stories. Generally, not all of them, but quite a few of them turn out to be hoaxes in the end, and that's really a shame. But those are some of my stories, and that's why I believe we're definitely not alone in this universe at all. So again, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the stories. And listen, the Amazon gift card giveaway is still open. It's going to be, I'm going to decide who the winner is this Friday, the 18th. So if you want to, be eligible to win, send me an email. My email will be in the description of this podcast. But you have to email by Friday because that's when I'm choosing the winner. And don't forget my friend Darren Meakin with his campaign to raise money for children whose families don't have enough money to give them a Christmas this year. Not a lot of people donating. I don't think anybody's donated. Let's have some Christmas spirit, folks. Help a brother out if you can. So anyhow, thanks again for listening, and stay safe, stay well, watch the skies. You never know what you'll see out there, and hopefully it's not something scary like a big triangle over the road, and you're fearing you might get abducted. That's that one is spooky. Anyhow, folks, have a good one. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you next time here on the Mind's Eye Podcast.